Les Brown is one of the greatest motivational speakers of all time. He spent decades mastering the art of storytelling, the skill Steve Jobs called the most powerful in the world. But Les didn't start with confidence. He was labeled educable mentally retarded before he was filling stadiums with tens of thousands of people hanging on his every word. In this session at my mastermind group, he opens up about how to craft stories that not only inspire, but also transform lives. If you've ever struggled to find your voice, this is a conversation that will help unlock it. If you've been here before, drop a hashtag Believe in the comments below so I can feature you here in a future video. And if you're new, welcome to Believe Nation, the only channel that helps you believe in yourself daily, one video at a time. Believe. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Les and I have been, I don't know how long we've known each other, for quite some time. And when I told Les about this event, he said, well, how important are these people to you? Are they like family? Are they just, I don't know what else you said, but I said they're important to me. It's like I would like to come out and share and help. And
yes.
He doesn't leave the country that often, hop on a plane to come to Canada.
No, I don't believe in working God overtime. No.
So he's here for us, and I'm super grateful he's going to spend a couple days. And he was asking about the event, and I said, well, I could interview you on day one. He's like, well, what else are you guys doing? And I'd love to stick around. I was like, okay, we'd love to have you stick around too. So storytelling is super important. It's very timely that you're here. Our mastermind group, these members all have successful entrepreneurs. They have successful businesses. They're trying to grow their business and their impact. Everybody's got a story, a message. They're trying to make a bigger dent in the universe with their message. So even just starting off on that, what guidance do you have for sharing their story?
One of the things that's very important now, and I want to thank you for your presentation. I learned so much this morning. Let's give Evan a round of applause for the information that he shared. It is the one area that allows you to make your life AI-proof. How many of you know people who are just afraid right now because of artificial intelligence? Raise your hands, please. Yes. And so the thing that, and Steve Jobs said it best. He said, the storyteller, most powerful person in the world. Evan, he told me a story about his mother and what he learned just watching her example of serving people. That stayed in my head. I asked him, I said, is your mother going to be here? I became a fan and then he wrote a book called Built to Serve. And he is an example of the kind of environment and the parenting style and her lifestyle that he bought into at a very early age. And so we know to be or not to be, that is the question. Who said that? Shakespeare, yes. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Who said that? Jeff Kennedy, yes. I have a dream. Who said that? You got to be hungry. Who said that? So here's what makes you AI proof. Number one, and write this down, please. When people listen to you, one-on-one, small groups or large groups, one is they want to identify with you. People cannot identify with artificial intelligence. It's a scraper. Number two, they want to relate to you. People cannot relate to artificial intelligence. And three, they want a connection with you. And when you speak from your heart, you expand a person's mind and vision of themselves, and you create an experience. And this is what's so important in speaking, is to create an experience, because ChatGPT can provide the information. And what we know is that if information can transform people, everybody would be skinny, rich, and happy. Each of you, when you share your story, you have an energy signature, and people resonate with that. I have a friend of mine named Evan Carmichael. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to share something with you. How many of you had some moments where you talked to someone and they shared some things with you and it touched your heart? Raise your hands, please. And so Evan, when he spoke to me, he talked to me with such love and admiration of his mother. and the kind of person that he saw her to be, and serving people. And Evan, as he talked about her, all I can think about was, Evan, that's you. She put her stamp on you. How many of you had somebody in your life that when you look back, that person contributed to you being the person that you are right now? Raise your hands, please. Now, here's what I've done. When you're speaking, the people that you're speaking to, their audience is inside of each audience, number one, separated by age, by income, by education, and a variety of experiences. The other thing is that when you're speaking, because of the noise from the world and their own self-explanatory style, as a coach, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, there are three things that we must do strategically with our speech, with our story. Write this down, please. Distract, dispute, and inspire. That when you speak, and it's very important in the style of your communication, that you interrupt that person's story and the preconceived ideas they have about who you are and what you have and what they have. And what you do is you distract them from that and you take them into their imagination. Einstein said the imagination is the preview of what's to come. So you distract them from their current story, and as you present your story and the Red Seas, the things that you've overcome, that you dismantle their current belief system, their assumptions about life, and you inspire them to have the courage to become self-persuaded, to make a decision to take their lives in another direction. Chrissy was sharing me a story. She lost her husband and 3 children in a span of 20 years. When you think about you and how you handle life and things that you've been up against, who is it that stand out in your mind as a role model for a person who influenced how you see yourself and how you show up when life happens?
So this is going to sound selfish, but me.
No, when you were young, between ages of 0 and 7.
Grandma.
Your grandmother. Mm-hmm. What's her name?
Alice.
Grandma Alice. What's the first quality you admire about your Grandma Alice?
She didn't give up.
Yes. What's this? Give me an example.
Just things were hard. Things were always hard. Mm-hmm. And she just kept trying to figure it out.
And then what's the second quality you admire about your Grandma Alice?
Presence.
What do you mean by that?
Like physically there, emotionally there for whoever, not just me, everybody.
Yes. And the third quality?
She was tough. She was strong.
Gotcha. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about your life right now. How many of you have ever had an experience in your life that you felt at the time that it happened, that you had no idea on how you're going to handle it, how you're going to deal with it, but you got through? Raise your hands. You know what I'm talking about. Those jarring moments in life. There's a movie called Touch. And in that movie with Denzel Washington, he said, there are moments in life, there's before this and there's after this. And after this, nothing is ever the same again. I've gone through a variety of things. And I want to share some things that I learned from my Grandma Alice. And one of the things that I learned from her is that she never gave up. There are a lot of people who are failing, a lot of people recovering from COVID. A lot of people have lost their jobs. We see federal employees who lost their jobs, and many of them got those jobs thinking that was security. And they lost their jobs not because of their performance, but because of political reasons. And many of them are despondent because on their resumes there is an F, that they were fired. So it's difficult for them to go back into the marketplace to find a job. But what I learned from my grandmother Alice, whatever you are faced with in this thing called life, I want you to shake someone's hand on your right and left and say to them, never give up. Do that right now. Do that right now. Shake someone's hand on your right and left and say, never give up. Yeah, see, if I had a chance to talk to these people who many are depressed, many that have surrendered to all the chaos and the things that are going on right now, many who have said there are no jobs out there, and I've been knocking on doors and I've been sending out my resume and nothing has happened. I say to them, as I learned from my grandmother, never, ever give up. Even a broke clock is right twice a day. Here's something else. As you look at your goals and look at your dreams, what's the second quality you remember about your grandmother?
Presence.
Yes, you could be present. You know, we're living in a time we have more communication instruments than ever before. We see people out with their family members and friends, and rather than talking to each other, they're on the telephone. We have more communication instruments and less communication. And this is a time, and I want you to write this down, be present. My grandmother, she was present with me and all of the family. She was the resource person, and what we knew that she saw us. There's a line in scripture where Jesus came to a town and the lady said, Lord, have mercy. And the next line said, he saw her. And you're in business, or you working with family members or friends or people that you are in relationship with, they want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be respected. And as we look at ourselves and look at in the businesses that we're in, people don't want to be treated like a transaction. They want to know, do you see me? Am I in your radar? And being present with people rather than being distracted by the noise of life is so very important. And something else, you got to be tough. Viktor Frankl, in his book called Man's Search for Meaning, he said that in life you either in a problem or you just left one or you're headed toward one. You gotta be tough. Life be lifing. Stuff's gonna happen that you never see coming. When COVID happened, it just like snatched the rug out of so many people's lives. And that's called life. And one of the things that I learned from my grandmother and being tough, don't complain about what happened to you. Don't tell people about it. Why? 80% don't care. And 20% glad it's you and not them. It's called life be lifing. And so when you think about your goals and dreams, it's so very important to understand that there's a part of you, the irreducible essence of who you are, as Viktor Frankl talked about, being in Auschwitz and the Jewish concentration camps, that you've got to be tough. What is it that allows one to be tough? Having something that you believe in so strongly, your why for being. Nietzsche said, if you know why for your why for living, you can endure almost anyhow. There were those Jews who had a loved one they were determined to see, or some spiritual grounding that allowed them to navigate the inexpressible cruelties of Nazism, or some cause that they believe in. Who are you? What do you believe in? Where are you going? And what is the value and the impact of the life that you want to make? I say that you were chosen to be here, to live a life that will outlive you. I'm Grandma Alice, granddaughter, and she's with me now. Follow the principles that I learned from her. A lot of wisdom. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. You don't want to go into detail what happened to you because you don't want people to get stuck there. And you don't want people to feel sorry for you. The story and your being on stage is not about you. The key is to tell your story in a way that they see themselves in your story. And you don't want to say to them, if I can do it, you can do it. What you want to do is tell your story strategically so that they become self-persuaded. I can do what she did and going through this. Mm-hmm. Because your goal is not to go from the place of them believing. No. Corinne, she teaches a leadership course on knowingness. Belief is in the mind. Knowing is in your heart. There's some things that we know that because our hearts cannot be programmed. And the belief is we've been programmed. And because of our pre-programming, that determines the choices that we make. He knows about the value of service because he experienced that with his mother. Belief always evolved into knowingness. When you know something, that's in your heart. It doesn't require evidence. That's why we say, ye shall know the truth. Have the power to call forth those things that be not as though they were. And so when you come from that place, people respond. The universe bends in your favor. Write this down, please. Power, feeling, and convictions. We're living in a time where we're experiencing strategic chaos, weapons of mass distraction. It's done deliberately to keep us off-centered. It's not good for our mental health. And so what's most important in the midst of all of that, and this is what you did. You didn't focus on what happened to you. You didn't focus on the loss of your 3 children and your husband. You focused on, what am I going to do now? L.C. Robinson said, things may happen around you and things may happen to you, but the only things that really count are the things that happen in you. What are you going to do now, Christy? How are you going to handle this? How are you going to navigate this? And what's the lesson that you can share with others to let them know that they don't have to be their past, that life will happen to you? It might bend you, but it won't break you. And you're an example of that. People say practice what you preach, but what you're doing, you're preaching what you practice. There's a difference. And people say you can toss to the water, but you can't make them drink. But when you're strategic in how you share your story, you create a thirst where they want to drink. You want to create the want to factor.
Well, I'm going to need to process, because those things that, that we went through with Grandma, those are definitely foundational. And I know that your foundation of how you respond to the world often starts in your childhood. But the things that I've learned from each of my children and my husband in the way that they presented in their purpose in the world, so I'm processing what you're saying of making it a story, a positive story on the impact that they had on me, the things that I learned from them.
Let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. When you share your story, what's the primary goal that you want people to walk away with?
I think that, like you said, the world is responding to their environment and creating mental chaos. We have people who are just surviving. They're not living in purpose.
I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about each person in that audience, individually and collectively.
Finding their purpose.
Finding their purpose. Mm-hmm. Yes. But there's something else that you are bringing to them. You know what that is? The power of decision. Mm-hmm. You made a decision.
Yep.
We make decisions and our decisions make us. I know a guy who lost his daughter. You've lost 3 children. He lost his daughter. Mm-hmm. Every year around the anniversary of her birthday, he goes on a drinking binge. Mm-hmm. He doesn't serve his clients. He doesn't show up in court because he's living in the past. He's focused on the loss. You made a decision that I'm going to turn this pain into purpose.
That's the title of my book.
What?
Pain to Purpose.
Yeah, so there's a coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. Okay, thank you. So you made a decision.
Yeah.
That I'm going to go and help other people. When things happen to us, you can become angry or you become bitter. You could be pissed off with God. Why dare you? Why would you do this to me? Mm-hmm. You decided I'm not going there.
Well, I went there for a little bit.
All of us do.
You have to wrestle with God sometimes.
Yes. Yep. I went there when my mother died. Mm-hmm. How could you take her, God? Mm-hmm. She raised 7 children she didn't give birth to. Mm-hmm. Why would you let her suffer like this? I never saw anyone die, but holding my mother's hand. I remember praying, but God, take it off her, give it to me. She doesn't deserve to suffer like this. I was angry, and then I read a scripture, Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro. And they said to Nebuchadnezzar, oh, Nebuchadnezzar, my God is able to deliver us. But if not, we still won't bow. And I decide, God, I know you can save my mother, but if you don't, I will not bow to anger or depression. I will not bow to focusing on the loss. I will focus on the value and the impact that she made in my life. And I am her legacy to go into the future, and I know that she will always be with me. We make decisions, and you made a powerful decision. You took a stand with your life. And as a result of that, as you speak, there are people who will hear you who are stuck in the past. When you speak and how you deliver your message, you will liberate them from living in the past and to be present with themselves, and how to begin to become a pencil in the hand of God and start writing a new chapter in their lives, as Mother Teresa would say.
That was a very powerful, I think, demonstration of the power of using a story to sort of create that thirst so that people would want to sort of see themselves or have that change for themselves. How did you do that? What's the principle? What are the framework that I don't know, I know I would love to figure out to do that. I just don't know how.
What is your story? There's something about you. There's something that you experienced when you decided to take this path with your life. What was that moment when you decided, that's me, I'm going to do this? What happened?
So when I was in high school, I had this dream. I was horribly insecure, and I had found that I was pretty good at school. And so I think I had used that as sort of a way to cover my sort of sense of inadequacy and feelings of just not being good enough. And I had set it in my sights that I wanted more than anything to go to Princeton. And so I had gotten really good grades. I was valedictorian of my high school, but I did not do very well in the SATs. And I did not get into Princeton. And it was crushing to me. I couldn't talk to people for weeks. I couldn't hear about the school for years afterwards without sort of feeling twinges of feeling inadequate. And I think a lot of it, because I'd felt sort of not good enough about myself, that was the confirmatory evidence that I really wasn't good enough. Eventually I realized, there is a way to actually get good at these tests. Other people, they're doing something different. And so I set out to really try to figure out what that was. And so I ended up doing really well, eventually, really well, and the MCAT, scored in the top 1%, and then went on to score even higher on an even harder exam. And what I realized is that for me, going from not even knowing that I was supposed to study for these tests to actually being very good at these exams, that this was a transferable skill, and that the process that I had gone through is something that I could teach to other people. And so I wanted to be able to do that for other people.
Ladies and gentlemen, how many have ever had a goal that was very important to you, and you set out to get it, and it didn't happen? Raise your hands, you know what I'm talking about. It's called life. And there was a moment in my life that I put everything into, I wanted to go to Princeton, and I didn't make it. I was devastated by that. And here's something that I realized. How many of you saw Lion King? Raise your hands, please. Yeah. You know what, Lion King, there's a line in there that I love very much. Simba, you're more than that which you have become. I realized that I had set my eyes on Princeton, but I was looking to Princeton to add value to me, and I realized I am more than enough. And I use my knowledge and my critical thinking skills to go on and help people to begin to carve out a life that represents who they are. I decided that I was enough. No, I never went to Princeton, but I don't see myself as a failure. Something about this thing called life, and Robert Frost said, two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and I selected the one less traveled by. I chose to say, this is a new path that I'm taking with my life. I learned some things from that experience, but when I died, to me, I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person. Religious people are afraid of going to hell, but spiritual people have been there, and I live my life in such a way. Yeah. I live my life in such a way so that when I die, I see the person that I was supposed to become, and that person says, you've done a good job. I'm proud of you. I'm reminded of the words of Winston Churchill. They asked him, who would you like to be throughout history if you had the power to come back again? And when he said this, it resonated with me. He said, I'd like to become the man I never was. And this path I now see being denied by Princeton has now pushed me to a place of being accepting of myself and taking a path in life to help others to realize they are enough. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Tell me what you got out of that.
So you took the story and you essentially turned it back on them, right? It's like, this is, you took something that is very personal to me and then made it sort of universal. So it's like, I had feelings.
Not universal. I don't want you to look at it from the perspective of the audience. I want you to tell me, when I took your story, there's a journey that you went to, a place in yourself that even though that did not happen, there's something else that you created that took you beyond yourself being qualified by Princeton, because God does not qualify. God does not call those who are qualified. He qualifies those who are called. You are called to do the work that you are now doing. You qualified yourself. You answer the call on your life that goes beyond a degree from Princeton. Get out your head and into your heart, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never really thought about it that way. I never really thought about it as, I mean, I think you are hitting the nail on the head multiple times, and that, yes, I tend to go into my head and sort of intellectualize it.
Keep this in mind. When there's an argument between your mind and your heart, follow your heart. That's what you did. You could have stopped. You could have decided, I'm not worth anything. I'm not a Princeton graduate. But you went on. You pushed through. And you created this person that I'm looking at now, who was chosen out of 400 million sperm. This person I'm looking at now. You're a masterpiece because you're a piece of the master. You were chosen for this work.
You know, I never really thought about that story in the context of why. I mean, I guess I have. I mean, I've thought about it sort of in a general sense, as I was like a motivator.
You're illustrating something. What we do as speakers, as presenters, we take a person to a place in themselves that they can't go by themselves. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. You can't read the label when you're locked in the box. And this is when you are a strategic storyteller. You help people to see what they can't see. And sometimes you have to believe in somebody's belief in you until your belief kicks in. When I spoke in the Georgia Dome, and people can see this on YouTube, called It's Not Over Till You Win, I was just filled with fear. My mentor, Mike Williams, he said, Brownie, you can do this. I locked myself in the bathroom. And they said, Mr. Brown, they're stalling for you to come up. I said, I can't hear the voices. And they said, go get his mentor. And Mike Williams, who wrote the book, The Road to Your Best Stuff, he knocked on the door. Brownie, they're waiting on you. I said, Mike, it's 80,000 people out there. He said, they came to see you. You didn't come to see them. Mike, I can't hear the voices. And he did something strategic. He said, Brownie, you scared? I said, yes. He said, do it for your mother. I said, don't use my mother on me. You know how proud Miss Mamie will be to be able to tell the neighbors, my boy, he spoke before 80,000 people. Come out now, Brownie, and do it for her. And I remember we walking down toward the stage, and my heart is beating fast because when I came in, I was anticipating speaking to 500 people in a banquet room, and a guy asked, what is it like to speak to 80,000 people? I said, I don't know. He said, are you Les Brown? I said, yes. He said, come over here a minute. And he said, you see all those people out there? I said, yes. That's who you're speaking to. I said, oh my God. And I turned around and I started running toward the men's room. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the bathroom, but it's number one. It's number one. So, and they had to come get me out. But when I got up there and the guy gave me the microphone, Mike looked at me and he said, you got this. Sometimes you have to believe in somebody's belief in you until your belief kicks in. When he said that, it didn't go in my ears, it went to my heart. You got this, Brownie. And I said, thank you, Mike. Thank you. And I grabbed that microphone and I went out there and I mastered them because he spoke this word. You know, there's a place in Scripture where they asked Jesus when the kingdom of God shall come, and he said, the kingdom of God cometh not by observation. They shall say, is neither lo there, lo here. Behold, the kingdom of God is within you. And I believe that kingdom of potential, that greatness, that willingness for us to serve and to do the greater work is voice activated. That when we speak, we activate in people to get unstuck. When we speak, we distract people from procrastinating where dreams go to die. And we teach them how to be present now and do the work now, understanding the words of one great philosopher who said, stop living like you have 1,000 years to live. Be present and do the work that you're called to do now.
So I think I understand that you're saying, so, you know, we can use obviously our stories to help people to sort of see themselves in our stories. But like, would you recommend just like using the way that you just described my story?
It's a process.
Okay.
I got some things I'll share with you, but see this over and over again, and you're going to get some new ideas. How many of you, since I've been speaking, you got some ideas? Raise your hands, please. Just what we're doing now. It's a process. See, all of us are born the same way, dumb, naked, and speechless. We can learn, and the people who are willing to put in the effort to learn, to develop the skills, the people who are willing to do what, when you think about Evan is built to serve. He's got the can helps it. He came out of that kind of environment. There are certain people in this life like you and those that are in this room who operate out of a sense of oughtness. That most people are spectators, but there are few. The road to life is straight and narrow, and few there be that find it. The few that's in here, they operate out of a sense of oughtness. They operate out of the thinking of Henry David Thoreau, who said, do not go where the path may lead. Go where there's no path and leave a trail. We are here to leave a trail. We are here because of the higher standard that we are holding ourselves to and how we want to serve the people that can hear our voice.
It sounds like continue to tell our story, refine it.
Continue
in the process.
And get some coaching on it, because like I said, you can't read the label when you're in the box. Get someone who's doing it on the level that you'd like to do it on. And because it can shorten your learning curve. A lot of people, they start out trying to wing it and they get far down the road doing some stuff that doesn't work. I heard this lady speak the other day, and you'll be able to identify with it. She said, how many of you ever experienced trauma in your life? And people raised their hands. She said, I was 5 years old when I saw my father shoot my mother in the head and kill her. And at 5, no child should ever see something like that, no adult. And at 5, when my mother's mother, my grandmother, took me in, and I was around people who did not know enough to help me deal with the pain that I was experiencing as a young child, a moment that I will never forget. And then she went on to talk about how the several stages of grief. And she was wondering why people weren't moved. I said, because they were stuck in the beginning. They got caught there. People come and say, oh, I'm so sorry that you went through that. She didn't want them to have pity on her. She wanted them to understand her journey, the stages of grief. People deal with it differently. People say time heals all pain. No, not necessarily. Sometimes we need an interruption to help us to expand our level of awareness, to have the tools and the clarity of mind to handle it and to put it behind us. And so that's why it's important for you to be able to share with someone what you want to do and what drives you. What is the most important point in this point in your life? How old are you?
Almost 40.
Almost 40? Yeah, I'm 80. I used to think people in their 40s were old. Now that I'm 80, I feel I served at the Lord's Supper, but I got a lot of tips, okay? And so this is where life is beginning for you. There are people, you have an energy signature. There are people that won't hear Evan, won't hear me, won't hear Hoss, but they're going to hear you. They're going to identify with you, a guy who was once an introvert, a guy who had swallowed his voice, a guy who decided that I'm going to die to who I've been to give birth to this person that you now see. And there are people who need to hear that, because in this space where we are, two things are going to dominate. Artificial intelligence, number 2, but number 1, your brand, your voice, your story. Because you write a book, it's one thing to write for the eye, it's something else to speak for the ear. You got a skill, you got a practice, you got a business, you are the storyteller that makes you stand out into the marketplace, that you become so good on how you tell the story about who you are and why you are who you are, that people can't ignore you.
This is maybe a dumb question.
It's not. It's coming from genius, so I'm open to that. Agree with me.
How often would you would you just use that same story? Like, how often would you tell this? Like every opportunity that you get? Like,
because you get a structure. Everybody write this down. Focus. Faith. Follow through. It's a framework. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think about your life and goals right now. When you look at me, this person standing before you now, there was a time that I was invisible to people, including myself. I didn't speak. I didn't want to stand out because I didn't want to be noticed. I didn't feel good about myself. And I made a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to focus on the kind of person that I wanted to become. I want you to think about your goals and your dreams. But before we go there, I want you to focus on who is it you have to become in order for you to do that. Because you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. I started focusing on self-development and working on my confidence and my communication skills and my people skills and finding out what is it that resonates with me and my heart and what I want out of life. Focus on the things that you need to do that will help you to develop into the person that you need to become. Because in order to do those things that you've envisioned, you got to die to who you are now to give birth to who you are to become. And the next thing is faith. And that faith, activate that faith in you, that faith, it can be used for you or against you. The faith that things aren't going to work out for you. Zig Ziglar called it fear, false evidence appearing real, or the faith that I'm taking a stand with my life. I'm going to do this no matter what. That faith gives you resiliency and the knowingness of why. What is it that gives your life meaning and purpose? To live a life that will outlive you. I want you to focus, 1, to live your life the way you want to leave your life. 2, to have the faith that you have the power within you to create your own future. And 3, to follow through. Faith without works is dead. Follow through. Execute. Work hard. Be persistent. Be relentless. And when you focus, that is so very important. Og Mandino, in the book called The University of Success, he said most people never achieve their goals because they become sidetracked by secondary activity. I used to be sidetracked by thinking about who I was at that time, not taking into account that it's a choice. And I chose to become a different person. I'm like the lady who said, Lord, I ain't what I want to be, ain't what I'm going to be, but thank God I ain't what I was. And let go of the people that don't see this new you. And there's something else. Write this down. Don't be the go-to person for people you can't go to. There's a period in my life I was just giving my energy and my time away to people who weren't deserving of it. There's a book called The Kabbalion. The lips of the wise are sealed to the ears of the ignorant. Don't try to convince people about what you are and who you are. What you think about yourself and what they think about you is none of your spiritual business. Focus on building you. You have the power. It's in you to do the greater work, to build a legacy and live a life that will outlive you.
Through your storytelling, I've been distracted from my own, lists and everything. And the third one was inspire. I've definitely been inspired. What was the middle? It was distract, something, inspire.
Distract, dispute. Yeah, because when you speak, write this down, people are asking, who are you? That's where you give the introduction to who you are. People listen to and are influenced by people they get to know, like, and trust. So at the top, you have to answer that question, who are you? The next thing is, what do you have? And what you have is a story of achievement, of some stuff that you've gone through, stuff that you've overcome. And why should I care? They should care because what you have done, you have the receipts. You are evidence, exhibit A, that it works. And so you deliver that message in a way that they say to themselves, if he could do this, I can do this myself. Distract, dispute, and inspire.
As you mentioned, your mentor, Mike, and how he believed in you more than you believed in yourself. And so I've got a mentor like that, Evan. He sees in me a lot more than I see myself. So instead of letting that build me up, I sometimes turn that into pressure that I need to then earn his love and earn his belief. And so looking at your relationship with Mike, how do I stop performing for needing love and approval of that, and instead use that as fuel to make the world a better place?
And you have already answered the question because you know what you need to do. You don't need to ask me that question. You know what you need to do. And the knowingness of making the decision, this is who I have to be, love myself enough. Evan sees something in me. I'm experiencing and living a life that's attracted this kind of person in my life. I'm going to maximize this relationship, not just making him proud, but making myself proud. I'm going to override the negative conversations within myself. There's an African proverb that says, if there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. And I've decided to become a booster of myself. I decided to validate and confirm and see in Evan's eyes what he sees in me and live up to those levels of high expectations. No one rises to low expectations. He has high expectations for you. He sees you, the real you, and helping you to step out of the programming from your environment, your circumstances, and things that you've gone through so that you will have this moment, this moment that there's before this and there's after this. And after this, your life is changed and you'll never see yourself in the same light again. I was labeled educable mentally retarded. And I had a person in my life like Evan. I was put back from the 5th grade to the 4th grade, and I failed again when I was in the 8th grade. And then my junior year, I met this man who just a really similar personality like Evan. And he said, young man, go to the front of the room and work this problem out for me. I said, sir, I can't do that. Why not? I'm here to see MacArthur Stevens. I'm not one of your students. And so the other students started laughing, saying, Mr. Washington, he's Leslie. He's got a twin brother, Wesley. Wesley's smart. He's DT, sir. What's DT? He's the dumb twin. And he looked at me and I agreed. And he came from behind his desk, Alex. He said, don't you ever say that again. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. Do you hear me? And I said, yes, sir. On one hand, I was humiliated. But on the other hand, I was liberated. Because he looked at me with the eyes of Goethe, who said, look at a man the way that he is, he only becomes worse. But look at him as if he were what he could be, then he becomes what he should be. And I saw in his eyes, he did not see me as the dumb twin. Now, my mother said, on the other hand, sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. How many of you know words can hurt you? Raise your hands, please. They did hurt, and they hurt deeply. But when he spoke that day, he distracted me from the stories that have been in my head, and through his consciousness and how he treated me and how he looked at me, he liberated me from the story that I bought into and allowed me to see a different image of myself. This is what we do when we speak, when we train, when we're coaching people, and when people are watching us. I was watching everything here. I talked to Drew coming here. Tell me who's in the room. You went to dinner last night. Who did you meet? What are the conversations? One of the things, how many of you are speakers? Raise your hands, please. One of the things that allowed me to stand out from other speakers, the speaking industry is governed by the Dale Carnegie course, which is a great course. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Write this down. This is what made me become successful. Never let what you want to say get in the way of what your audience needs to hear. In all thy getting, get understanding. Find out who they are. So I was asking Evan, have you been to other meetings here? Have you been to other masterminds? What did you notice about them? What was it, the conversations last night? Well, I talked to 3 people, okay, but tell me who's going to be in that room. There are people from the healthcare profession, and there's some business people, and there are some speakers, and there are coaches. I'm doing an assessment. I want to find out who's here so I can align myself with the people that in this room so I can speak to where they are rather than assume I know. I don't know. The audience is inside of each audience. And as you do your homework to find out who they are and you speak to where they are, they say, whoa, I remember I got this contract, major pharmaceutical company. It was in Fort Lauderdale. And I had just got a standing ovation. It was these doctors from all over the world. And they had these signs up. The danger zone, my daughter Ona, she was there, and people just surprised when they find out my daughter coached me on how to become more effective in my speaking style. And so she said, let's observe what's going on. They had these signs up. So I sat by the CEO, And I asked him, so what these signs stand for? The danger zone. He said, oh, these doctors are coming in to get a contract to train doctors how to communicate with their patients to increase their taking of their hypertension medication, because if they don't take their medication, they can die of a stroke or a heart attack. So I asked him, do you have hypertension? He said, yes. I asked, why do you take your medication? He said, I want to live. I said, then why are you waging a fear-based campaign? He said, you got a point. Do you know how to train doctors? I said, absolutely. He said, you got the contract. 1 month, 16 speeches. Average American earns $240,000 in their lifetime. 1 month, 16 speeches, because I've wanted to find out the guy who is writing the check, what is it that governs his behavior and his choices? I was the only one there that was not a doctor, and I got the contract. 1 month, 16 speeches, $640,000. Now, I'm not saying this to you to impress you, but to impress upon you. It's very important to know who's listening and to listen to the listening and to do your homework so you know who you're speaking to. Don't assume because you got a standing ovation over here with that message that you have that the same thing is going to happen here with this new audience. Each audience, they have their own personality. How many of you found that to be true? Raise your hand. There's some things that one audience will laugh at, another audience, it falls flat. Now, the reason I have you raise your hands is because I want you physically in my presentation. And you want to do that, to get people physically involved and asking questions that are good, that they'll be comfortable to answer to. I don't ask questions that are negative, that they don't want to raise their hands for. I know some of y'all procrastinate like I used to, but don't raise your hands, just blink your eyes. I see you. Until you use humor and intersperse it in your presentation. But keep this in mind. When you have a subject that you believe in, and this is very important, I want to share with you. No more than your story. How many of you noticed the number of quotes that I use in different examples? Raise your hands, please. You want to know more than your story. Because when your audience knows as much as you know, they won't need you. You want to know more than your story. Here's something else. Don't just tell the story. Go there. Experience the story. When my friend Evan talked to me about his mother and her example of how she inspired him to become the man that he is, that moved me. That reminded me of my mother, who decided when she was confronted with Dorothy Bell Rucker, my birth mother, and she asked, are you Miss Mamie Brown? Yes, I am. Mr. Curry said that you will take both my sons. Yes, I will. And Mr. Curry said, my birth mother got up in Mamie Brown's face and their nose almost touched, and she just stood there looking at her. You promised never to separate my sons? I promise, I swear to God. You will take good care of them, right? Yes. They will always have a roof over their head? Yes. I've never had any children. Yes. And he said, they stood there looking at each other for a minute. And then she looked at Mr. Moss and said, she's the one. And Mr. Moss gave us to Mrs. Mamie Brown. And as she turned to walk out to the car, Mr. Moss opened the door for her. He said, my birth mother came to the window. You swear you're going to take care of my boys, right? Yes, ma'am, I promise. And she kissed us both on the forehead, and she turned her back to the car. Go, Mr. Moss, go now. And Mr. Moss drove off slowly, and finally he heard a scream, wait! Wait, please wait. And she ran to the car, and Mr. Moore said, Mamie asked her, do you think she changed her mind? He said, I don't know, Miss Mamie. And she came to the window crying. You gonna take care of him, right? Yes. I swear to God, ma'am. And she said, okay. And he drove off very slowly. And he said, as he looked at my mother holding us in a light blue blanket, he said, he knew her life will never be the same again. How many of you had an experience that you knew because of that experience, your life will never be the same again? Raise your hands, you know what I'm talking about. And I want you to write this down. Create special moments. I want some feedback. As I told that story, I want some feedback. What did you experience as I shared that story?
We were in the moment, in the story. We were visually present. It was present tense. In the moment,
yes.
In the moment, felt the emotion.
Yes. Anybody else have a comment?
I think the use of dialogue was really so powerful because it puts, at least for me, it puts me in both people's position and forces me to have the perspective of each speaker in the dialogue. That's a next level of speaking. Like there's, you speaking to the audience, telling your story is one thing, but then you sharing dialogue, now all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 different people, right? And conversations going off in my head.
I really liked your use of tension to re-engage me, because I kind of feel like the middle of the story is kind of where people can drone off. But as you went and built the tension again as to when she called out to the man for the second time to wait, it just builds that sense of mystery as to like, what is the purpose of her wanting to go back and re-engage, and because that's so prominent in our decision making, because it's we make the decision and then there's always those afterthoughts. So I think that it was really just a really great way of re-engaging me into the story again, and to get me to really relate to how big of a decision it is truly that she is making in that point in her life, and just being able to relate that to the stories that I make in mine.
What stood out for me was the emotion that was told with, and making me experience the emotion that your birth mother experienced in letting go of her 2 boys, and trying to make sure that Mrs. Mimi understood that I'm not letting go of those boys because I don't love them. Like the love was evident there, and I want to make sure you're going to take care of them. And on the other side, hearing Mrs. Mimi's part in this to make sure that I love those boys already, and I want to make sure you're not changing your mind about this. So it's really the tension of that moment. And I think when you tell the story in that way, it connects to multiple people in the audience. Number one, even for the mothers who have let go of kids, I think a lot of people feel that when a mother is letting go of the child is because I don't want them, I don't love them, I don't, whatever reason. But that story brings the feeling that the person was having and connects with multiple people, not just the adopter, but also the person letting go of the child. And I think that's a feeling that's usually overlooked in situations like that. So,
thank you. A lot of people, they have a variety of speeches they give. I heard Barack Obama give this speech, The Audacity of Hope, many times in Chicago before he did it at the Democratic Convention, and people said he's presidential material. Dr. King, I Have a Dream, the best version of that was done in Detroit. He did it over 200 times. I tell the disc jockey story. When I speak, and based upon where I am when I speak, because of the research I have, and I'll give it to you to send out to everybody, a needs assessment to find out who is it you've had in the past, what worked, what did not work, what's the unspoken conversation, what is it that you want me to speak to that you want them to buy into, and I'm a secondary voice to validate what it is that you want them to do and to inspire them to rise up and to buy into it at a deeper level. What is that? So this needs assessment, it gives me some insight on how to shape my message. I read their mission statement. I find out who are the top performers. I interview them separately, and then I collect stories and I incorporate those stories into my presentation so that people say, whoa, he talked about Marvin. So I remember their names. And so that it makes it personal, and people who know Marvin and those high performers, it's, oh, he knows Marvin. Wow. He brought that in. Most speakers don't do that. I have the needs assessment, and I interview the CEO and the marketing people. I read their newsletters, and then I go early and I talk to people in the audience. I talk to at least 5 people or 7 people in the audience to collect stories. If you were in my position, what do you feel that the people here need to hear? I want to ask, what do you think they need to hear? They're not going to tell you that. What do you think the people here need to hear? And what they tell you is what they need to hear. Okay? So you're going to find some common ground. In order to stand out in the minds of the people, when you do your homework and you start speaking, they say, whoa, he knows us, what we're up against, what we're facing. Wow. And I get it from them. Most people won't do that kind of work. They just already have a memorized script in their mind that they want to come in and deliver it. When I speak, when I'm setting it up, I want you to think about your goals and dreams. I want you to see this in your mind's eye. All dreams happen twice. First, in the mind, and then in the without. And as you look at that goal and dream, here's what we know. Sometimes we can't say, I can do that. But what we know is that if somebody at any point in time had a goal and a dream that they made happen, then it's possible that you can have your dream. Repeat after me, please. It's possible. Yeah. And then the other thing is, ladies and gentlemen, what we know is that it's necessary that you don't get in life what you want, you get in life what you are. It's necessary that we're willing to put in the work. It's necessary that we're willing to put in the time and effort to work on ourselves and who we need to become in order to produce this new results that we have for ourselves. It's necessary that you look at the relationships in your life and ask the question, what is this relationship doing to me? There's something that Evan is doing now. They did a study at Harvard University, the 1%ers, and they wanted to know what was it that they had in common. These people, many of them were not only multi-billion millionaires, but billionaires. What was it that they did that they had in common? And what they found was they had a reference group of collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. They're in a mastermind like this, iron sharpening iron, people learning from each other, challenging each other, holding each other to a higher standard, coming together, creating synergy and an energy, and helping them to begin to get a glimpse of what Elizabeth Browning would call the imprisoned splendor, the greatness that they have in themselves, to do more and to have more and to live a life of a greater impact. Give Evan a round of applause for recognizing your greatness and bringing you together. Come on, bring your energy level up.
So that was my interview with Les Brown.
I do apologize, Evan.
Great. It's great.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Yeah.
We're going to have some time tomorrow. Les has a presentation. He's going to go through some structure as well. So that's all set up for tomorrow. Funny story about Alex. So Alex, we did a clubhouse together a couple of years ago in the middle of the pandemic. And I told Al, you're one of Alex's heroes who looked up to you from storytelling, a bunch of things. And I told Alex that you were going to do it. He's like, oh my God, can I ask a question? Alex was never on Clubhouse. He was not part of our community. And said, okay, Alex, I'll fight to get you in, so you get your one question when others have been standing in line for a long time. And so there's all this, like pressure on Alex. Oh my, what question am I going to ask Les? This is going to be, so stressful. And then he gets on Clubhouse. It's like, hey, mic's open to you, Alex. What do you got? And then Alex basically just starts crying. Sobbing. It's like he's trying to tell a story. You can make out every like fifth word because it's just like it was pretty rough. And Mark, who was my co-host at the time, it's like you skipped so many people in line to have this guy come on and just cry like a baby. Like, we got a show that we're trying to create here, man. How do I tell this to the people who've been standing in line? And I'm like, I'm sorry, Mark. I thought it'd be better. And you somehow took whatever he said and turned it into something, which is great. And then when Alex found out that you're going to be coming here, he's like, oh my God, okay, I need to ask a better question and not, So yeah, I think you did a much better job this time around. That was pretty good.
Alex, let me share something with you. There's a minister that I admired, and my daughter, she knows this, is Charles Adams. He's selected among the top 5 preachers in the world. He spoke at the funeral of Mrs. Rosa Parks, a civil rights leader. So my first seminar, 15 people. He comes, and I've been listening to him, and I had his work transcribed. So my kids know how much I love him. He comes to the door, hi, my name is Charles Adams. Charles Adams? The Charles Adams? He said, yes, I wanted to come to this seminar that you're holding. I said, oh my God. So I had them to go get the transcript. I said, I got your work transcribed. And I know your work. I've been admiring you. So he comes to the seminar. To make a long story short, he asked me to come to the church the next morning, Drew. And I said, I'll be glad to. So I show up at Metropolitan Baptist Church, always standing room only, outstanding church in Detroit. So I said, hi, my name is Les Brown. Oh, we've been waiting for you. Drew, they took me down, put me on the front row. So the choir sings, and then he comes up and he says, ladies and gentlemen, I went to a seminar this past weekend. And this seminar, this young man, he changed my life. And he said that he was going to become a nationally known motivational speaker. And what I'd like to do this morning is call him up to do the morning prayer. So people started hunching me. The pastor said, come up. Now, mind you, the only prayer I knew, now lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. So I walk up there and I look, came from 15 people looking at 3,000. I looked and I bowed my head. I said, thank you, Lord, so much for this morning. Amen. And went and sat down. Everybody still had their head bowed. One lady opened up her eye and said, the devil had his tongue. So after service, I waited to talk to him to apologize because his look was, what in the hell happened? I gave you this build up. If you'd come up and showed me that guy you were in the seminar, you could have gotten so many engagements. What happened to you? He would not meet with me after service. They said he was counseling. I sat in the parking lot, Alex. I readjusted the rearview mirror, and I looked at it. I said, this will never happen to me again. This will never happen to me again. I swear this will never happened to me again. I don't know how long I was out there. And then a security guard knocked on the window, said, "Sir, we got to lock the gates of the parking lot. You've got to leave now." And I said, "Okay." And I drove away. And I said to myself, I'm going to study. I'm going to put myself so deep into this, I will never choke again. 3 weeks ago, I called the church. This was 53 years ago. I was so embarrassed. I had so much shame. I called the church. I saw a video of him on YouTube. So I said, "Hi, this is Les Brown. I'd like to speak to Dr. Charles Adams." The lady answered the phone. "Les Brown, the motivational speaker?" I said, "Yes. My father is Levi Stubbs, one of the four tops." I said, "Is that right?" "Yes, he had us listen to you. All of us listened to you for years." "Oh, thank you. I'd like to speak to Dr. Adams." "Oh, you don't know?" "No. He wouldn't know you. He has Alzheimer's now. His son took over." I said, "He wouldn't know me?" "No, I remember when you came and he called on you and you weren't able to get your words out. I remember that day, sir. But you've done so much more since then." I said, "I just wanted to tell him that I'm sorry. It's just, I just got the courage after seeing a video of him on YouTube." She said, "I'm sorry. He would not know you." Now, here's something I want to say. If there's somebody that you want to apologize to or say thank you to, whatever, don't take it for granted they're going to be here. I remember being in Vegas at this time. Gladys and I were married, and I heard Frank Sinatra say to a young man, "Live each day as if it were your last, because one day it will be." And I encourage you, you got something in you. This is the God moment. You were brought here to serve, at a time when people are giving up, at a time when people are filled with anxiety and depression, at a time when people are on edge and snapping and there's so much divisiveness. When you look in this room where there's peace, where there's harmony, and people are working together to be creative, to make a difference on the planet, that this is a calling. As much as you've chosen to be here, you were chosen to be here. And I feel honored to be in your presence. Thank you very much.
Let's go. So just quickly before, that last prayer you gave didn't go so well.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a feast waiting for us over there. You want to lead us in a prayer before we head off and go over?
Now lay me down to sleep.
This is your chance, you know.
Yeah. We thank you, Father, for this time that we have to spend together. We know that you have chosen us to be a voice to the masses. We know that we were built to serve. You said the greatest among you will be your servant. And so we are using our voice, our knowledge, and our skills to serve humanity, to create a new world order. We know that as we become obsessed with making a difference and serving, our obsession will be our possession to make a greater impact with our knowledge, our skills, our service, our practice, our business. And we give thanks that we were chosen for this moment in time. We give thanks that we were born and preserved for such a time as this. Thank you for leading us, for guiding us, and inspiring us, and ordering our steps. And so it is. Amen and amen.
Les Brown, everybody. And congratulations, you're one video closer to who you're meant to be. Believe. To watch part 2 of Les Brown coaching my mastermind students, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.